All right, so welcome to another episode of Behind the Rise podcast. We got Dr. D.
If you're looking to optimize your testosterone, where does testosterone come from? 1 in 10 cancers is actually genetically. Of those 9, 70% come from food. Think that's any healthier than the other stuff? No, it's just better marketing. Go for non-processed foods. Go for farm fresh foods, whole foods. They're neutering.
All right, so welcome to another episode of Behind the Rise podcast. We have a very, very special guest all the way from Miami zooming in here. We got Dr. D, Marcos de Andrade, CEO of Biohacks. Biohacks is a company. They're an age reversal and performance company helping humans become limitless. And Dr. D I heard him speak and it literally blew my mind, a lot of the stuff he was saying. We're super pumped to have him on the show. He works with the 1% of the 1% in the United States and probably around the world too. We'll get into it. But he's helping everybody with longevity and really like biohacking, to become their best self. So Dr. D, welcome to the show. We're pumped to have you.
Bro, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys having me. And let's crush it today.
Yeah, so Doc, so let's get into kind of how you got into this field, right? And then we'll get into a little bit more about what it is exactly that you do. But what made you how long you've been doing it? What made you want to get into it? Tell us a little bit about your background.
For sure. So, I mean, I had multiple, let's say the road turned for me a few times. But I've always stuck to health. I've always loved health. Growing up, I started working out when I was like 12 years old because, I was a chubby kid. And then I started liking the body, right? I was like, I started getting into fitness, started getting my little six pack and so forth. And then I became a lifeguard and I saved somebody when I was around 19. And I was like, wow, this is cool. I'm like, this is really cool. I, saved somebody in the ocean. It was like this Baywatch scene. I was like, whoa, it was like super cool. It was life changing. And I was like, you know what? I want more of that. But I'm like, I didn't want to be a lifeguard though. So, and I started getting really interested in biology and so forth. So I ended up telling myself I was going to go to medical school. And then fast forward, a lot of library years, like 10 to 30, from 20 to 30, I didn't have a life, lived in the library. And then at 30, I finally I'm working at the hospital that I've always dreamed of being at, which was Cleveland Clinic here in close to Miami and so forth. And then I get diagnosed with depression. Mind you, that didn't just come out of the blue. I started feeling like at 28 and a half, let's say, started feeling weird, like losing my pep, no energy, like focus, just off, man. Even like, sex drive, everything was just like, I don't know. It wasn't just, that fun, resilient kid and so forth. And ultimately my own colleagues, they're like, bro, you got depression, bro. Just take the pills. And I was like, no way. And that's when I quit medicine, went to business school. I dropped out. I was in my first year of post training after med school. I was doing research, actually, funny enough, in metabolism. And in business school, I was like, bro, I got to figure this out. I was feeling terrible. And I started studying biochemistry. I went back to the basics. I went back to biology and so forth. And then I fell into the world that I'm in today, which is a mix of functional medicine with orthomolecular, with holistic, with regenerative. I fell into this world of high performance and longevity. And, here we are today. I was my own first project, patient number one.
I feel like that happens to so many people. I don't know if it's men or women, if there's a difference, but that exact scenario happened to me at like 28 and a half, 29. Mm-hmm. I just like couldn't, I started getting more anxious. I started to get a little more down on myself, started to get a little more self-doubt and it kind of happened out of nowhere. I'm not sure if anyone else kind of deal with that, but that story kind of hit with me. I was like, oh, wait a minute. That happened to me. Very, very similarly. It happened actually to a couple of my friends too. It's like once you hit that 28, 29, 30, 31 years old, I'm not sure if anything like happens to your body. Like, why do you think that is?
Absolutely. Like I'm salivating to like go on an answer on that. So the thing, look around you. Like if you start taking inventory on the amount of poison you're going to consume today, that you're going to get hit with, oh, he's conspiratorial and so. No, I'm not being conspiratorial. This is fact. The stuff that we don't go look into. If you go to the United States toxic inventory, and you see all the chemicals that are there, and you see the ones that there's studies for and the ones that there's no studies for, right? If my memory isn't jogging me, there's about 40,000 chemicals in the United States toxic inventory, and there's only about studies for about 3,000 of them. So, but they're ubiquitous. They're all over society. They're in our foods. They're all over the place. And these are literally called, there's a group of them, they're called endocrine disruptors. They disrupt your hormonal system. So that's why guys like us, and women too, so men and women, all of a sudden you start to lose, the pep in your step. You start to lose like your chemical footprint, because there is a castration around us all day. They are literally castrating us with the chemicals in the environment, and this thing needs to stop. So yeah, there's a certain age group where people start to feel it, right? And that's why the old timers, our dads, our grandparents, our great grandparents, those guys were constructed in a way different, in a way different manner than we are, So it is a thing. It's not a figment of the imagination. It is a thing, and that's kind of the age group that people are starting to feel it more and more. And it's going to get younger, the younger and younger population. I mean, and I'll just finish with this. In Japan, you have, what is it called? Celibacy syndrome. Like, young dudes don't want to have sex. Like, what? Like, celibacy syndrome. Like, it's bad. It's bad.
That's bizarre.
So, like, all these toxins are around us, right? And I heard you speak about this the last time too in Miami, and it's like everything is around us everywhere you go, right? Like the water that we're showering in, the food that we're eating, the air that we're breathing,
the water
like,
that you're drinking.
The water that you're drinking. Like, how do you avoid that? Is there any way to avoid it, or is it about like supplementation and doing what you can to, help fight against all these things that are coming at us at different directions?
Bro, number one, you're gonna go try to decrease it. That's number one. You're not, living in the cement jungles that we live in. You guys up in Boston, me down here, you're not going to be free of it every day. You're gonna wake up every day and you're gonna think, okay, I'm gonna get hit with my daily dose of toxicity. How do I avoid as much as possible, right? And it's simple. Like when you go look over your food, just take an inventory for a second. What am I eating? Where did it come from? Right? Like, I got a guy that makes my meals and so forth, but it's like, no, dude, I want to know where you bought this chicken. Was this bought on a farm? Was this bought, I'm that guy. Unfortunately, I didn't, so there's people that go to big extents. I know other doctors. I know actually a really big name doctor. I mean, he goes to speak. He takes he cooks. He does not eat out. He does not. I'm not going to go to that extent. But then you ask yourself, okay, I've done everything I can to avoid it. You're going to find your comfort zone. Like, I'm not going to stop going to restaurants. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to live my life, right? But then, how does your pantry look like? How does your cookware like? Are you, one example I love is like, are you cooking on Teflon? Right? Don't cook on Teflon, right? Things like that. Little things that you can do so much for you and your kids and your family. But then it's like, what can I do? Which you just hit on, supplementation. What can I do to reverse engineer this, reverse the damage? Because the body is resilient and the body can heal itself, right? So yeah, I'm getting hit with a certain amount of damage that I want to minimize. Now, is there anything that I could do to reverse it? Yeah, there's a ton of stuff. Especially, so your detoxification pathways, like in your liver does about 60% of your detoxification, and glucuronidation and all these other different metabolic processes in your liver, they depend on vitamins, minerals, glutathione, etc. All these people doing all these crazy detoxes and so forth, but the detox, like, it's a chemical pathway that needs to be satisfied with resources, which are vitamins, minerals, and nutrients. If you don't supplement nowadays, you're just losing. You're like nuts if you're not supplementing. You're losing. So yeah, it would be, short answer, decrease toxicity as much as you can, your toxic load on a daily basis, and use alternative strategies to reverse engineer. Obviously, I'll stop here because I can go talk about hyperbaric, red light bed, like a bunch of peptides, stem cells, plasmapheresis, there's a bunch of things. But yeah, there's a bunch of different strategies for that.
Yeah. And one thing I heard you say before that like stuck out, I mean, I think it's like a stat we want to touch on here that ties into this to this topic, is I think you said in like the 1920s and 30s, like the chances of you getting cancer were like 3 out of 10 people. And then right now it's like 9 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. And then in the next couple of years, it's going to be 10 out of 10.
Yeah,
Is that a fact?
So recent studies, like 2015, 2016, show that one in every 3 men will get cancer, and one in every 2 men will get cancer. 1 in every 3 women will get cancer. So some form of cancer. So yeah, it's getting a lot worse, you know. And if you just, again, don't believe a word I'm saying. I always say this, you know, like, and use your logic and use common sense. You know, you can Google like cancer map, right? If you look geographically where there's more different types of cancers, you'll see it matches where there's more in industry, right? Like certain places in Africa, yeah, well, sure, they might be dying of hunger, dying of this and dying of that, but the cancer incidence and prevalence is lower. And then if you go back in history, these diseases that we have, which I'm going to change the name from diseases and, you know, cancers and autoimmunes, I'm going to say these physical aberrations. That's really what it is. It's this crazy thing, bro. There's these tumors are crazy. Like you like there's a tumor called a teratoma. You literally find teeth and hair inside the tumor. It's like it's nutty. It's crazy.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah, it's called, yeah. So these aberrations, years ago, many of them didn't exist, like not even close to the level we have here, or the incidence and prevalence of heart attacks, like 200 years, not even 200 years ago, 150 years ago. Like this is nuts what we're doing toward all these new technologies, but we're like cooking ourselves into problems, which, you know, we're desensitized to that. It seems like technology is advancing, but I don't know about that.
So it seems like a lot of this has to do with the food that we're eating, right? Mm-hmm. That seems to be like a big source of this issue, right? Where like the food table, whatever, changed back in like the 40s or whatever, where it's, you know, they're not prioritizing like healthy fats, beef, you know, like all that stuff, and they want, you know, cereal, breads.
I mean, on the new food chain, it said Lucky Charms was healthier than like a steak or something. No. I mean, it clearly is showing, you know, I don't know if it's like the government is trying to do it, but it seems like something's not catching up. You know, like the hospital system is still choosing to be non-preventative. It's like after them have someone sick, they're giving them something, but no one is actually thinking of preventative besides the functional health space and the guys like Dr. D. And I feel like the guys like Dr. D in the functional health space, that is the future. Like that is what's going to help people be preventative rather than, oh shit, I have cancer, now what?
Right.
It's like, wait, I don't want cancer.
I don't want to get it to begin with. I want to prevent it.
I don't want diabetes. Like, why are we even getting there? And it's because, you know, you look at our like you mentioned, like Monsanto and Teflon and all these shit. They're spraying all our crops with all this shit. I'm sure Dr. D could talk about that for fucking hours, but it's crazy. And then we're just turning a blind eye, and it's out of control. I don't know what's going to stop it. I mean, Dr. D, what do you think? Like, is there a stop to this shit with the food and the pesticides and all that?
So let's do some root cause. Let's do some root cause analysis, right? When we want to know where there's a problem, so let's go down to the root. Because in my space, they love, you know, very superficial conversations. You know, what chemical, you know, is causing the problem, and what this and what that. No, let's go down to the root cause. Let's go down to the narrative on our planet that's inculcated in our TV, in our brains, but through TV, through music industry, through where's all this? Because if you know, it seems like there's a common narrative going on. So if you could do this, you could go to Yahoo Finance, and you start seeing who owns which company, right? So you look at Nabisco, and you go see who, you know, and then you're going to end up somewhere at Procter Gamble, and then you keep going up and keep going up and keep going up, and you're going to see your fast food, you start to see it funnels and funnels and funnels and funnels and funnels and funnels. Most of these companies, including your rooters, you know, your media companies, your food companies, and so forth, about, I'm not sure if it's yet at 70%, but it's around like 60-something%. Most of them are owned by Vanguard. And then you can't really see who owns them. Don't believe what I'm saying. Go to Yahoo Finance and start playing with go to the search bar there and you can start playing with this. And then the other one's I can't remember if it's Blackstone or BlackRock. I always mix up those two names. So when you look into this, like, okay, there's a common narrative here, and one feeds the other, right? Watch this. FDA, which regulates our foods and our medications, which makes no sense to me because you eat their foods, you take their drugs. You see what I'm saying? So there's a common narrative. So it's not, they know. It's not a case of, it's like, come on, no. You know what you're doing, right? You know what you're doing, so it comes a point where you have to take personal responsibility for your health, your family's health. And if you don't program your mind, someone will program your mind. You see what I'm saying? So, not trying to, again, like to be conspiratorial. And then if you start to break down every company, I'm going to give you an example, one company, right? And I'm just talking off the top of my head here. Like I could go eons talking about this stuff. But 1915, right? We've had heart attacks before, right? Even like old ancient books talk about, Bibles, talks about like people having chest pain and this and this and that. We don't know exactly what kinds of heart attacks and so forth. But the specific one that, ASCVD, atherosclerotic coronary vascular disease, which is plaque inside your coronaries that causes you to have a heart attack and so forth. Number one killer right now, according to the World Health Organization. Number two is cancer. Number three is actually medical error, funny enough. So in 1915 is when we started to document more of these heart attacks in the United States. In 1911, okay, we had a very special company to be instituted in the United States, and that's called Crisco. And then, and that's where the shortening and those bad oils and so forth started to come around, right? I don't remember off the top of my head, somewhere 1920, 1930, here comes, food pyramid and all that stuff, and we start changing things around. So it's all too connected. It's all too connected, So what we do is, taking health to a different level, and I'll wrap up with this part. Even the guys in my space, there's no formal training for what we were doing in my space. And that's what sucks, because I do see other professionals trying to get into the space, or even getting into the space and doing things a little like off. I do see players coming into the space. There's like a bigger movement of people telling you like, hey, I know when you're going to die with these epigenetic tests. It's like, no, stop, don't do that. That's not right. There's no such thing as that. So it is something that needs to get more organized. Our space definitely needs to get more organized, and I plan on doing something about that.
I love it because it's the future. Like I almost want to tell every single person that they need someone like a Dr. D in their life. Like you need to find a functional medicine person or someone in the longevity space to analyze what's going on in your body and supplement based on deficiencies and all the stuff that you talk about. But before we go too down that rabbit hole, because we could talk about that like forever, I'm curious to, when you were in college, when you went to medical school and you decided to start the business, like give us the story of how that actually happened. Like what was your first client? What was the story of like, okay, I'm going to do this business. This is the space I want to be in. And then how did you grow from there? Because obviously now you have an amazing name, an amazing reputation, and service some amazing people. But there had to be steps to get there. So I'm kind of curious how that story lined up.
I'm still trying to understand how that happened myself. But God's good, man. Because like when you go with like your blinders on and you just go serve with passion and I'm not saying like I love money. I love, doctors don't like talking about money and sales and so forth, etc. I don't have an issue with that because I'll always provide value to people. But I didn't really do it on the side, like on that, to create, let me go create, wealth or not at all. I'm the underdog, and I went to medical school overseas. I went to undergrad here in the US, but my GPA wasn't the best. I had like a 3.2 or 3.3 or whatever. So I went to an American program overseas. So just right there, like it was just, I'm not the Harvard, summa cum laude. No, I'm not that guy. But am the guy in med school that probably graduated with the most street smarts, just, think outside the box. Because the more indoctrinated and more, titles you see on a doctor today, that just means he has, that he's following that system. He's following that, what we learn just exclusively in medical school, and doesn't think outside the box. So, in the process of me wanting to feel better, I started doing this stuff for myself, and I actually had a seminars company. I had nothing to do with something completely different from what I do today, and doing the seminars, I was doing seminars to guys in corporate wellness. I would go to companies and do seminars, and and I'm talking to guys in like our age group or a little younger, a little older, and I'm noticing these guys, at the end of the seminar, they're coming up and asking me questions and so forth. I'm like, bro, you're complaining the same stuff over and over and over. So, it just started like, hey, I can help you. Oh, and I can help you. And then I paired up with a doc, a friend of mine, and we started, he became medical director here, et cetera, and which is still here today, Dr. Richard Silva. And we just started taking care of people, and then I got this little office in my buddy's physical therapy practice, and then all of a sudden, I got my first celebrity, really big name guy that I had grown up listening to his music. I was like, no way. It was super cool. And because the lady that worked for him, they started to see her like really like transform, and then all of a sudden I get a call from him, and I was like, no way. So, and then just it started, from one celebrity to another, and then they started referring, and that actually made me be more quiet. I didn't want to post about it. I didn't want to, I really didn't want to be on the internet. I was like, I wanted to be kind of like the whispers, you kind of know me or you don't. And now it's changing a little bit, but that's really where it started, and I'm grateful, for, cannot mention names at all, but you could kill me and I won't say it, but some really, 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 really cool people in some interesting places that have helped us a lot. So it's been super cool.
One thing I learned about when I met you in person at Zane's dinner was the amount of infectious passion you had for what you were doing. Truly, like you can, I've met a lot of entrepreneurs in my life, and I've met a lot of people in business, throughout our careers, and just you may be the number one most passionate about what they're doing. And you probably didn't even notice. You were talking to people, and I was at another table, and I was just kind of like observing, because I'm one of those guys who just like observe and people watch, and it was just incredible to see how passionate he was talking to these people, like just the people around about anything. They would ask him any question, open book, fire it up. Yeah. Some people like, oh, you got to pay me for my time. He was just firing information, and I was sitting in the corner like taking notes on my fucking phone. And it's honestly, it was infectious, and I was like, wow, how the hell can I have energy? And I ran up to him and I was like, dude, Dr. D, I have 333 tests. What do I my test is so low. What do I do? So it was, I just wanted to give a compliment there, and to give some listeners like what you are in person is exactly how you are on social media. I mean, it is very, very similar. It's pretty awesome to see.
No, I look, number one, I'm grateful, bro. Like, I don't even think about it. It's not like I'm trying to, but even talking to you guys right now, and I know you guys have your listeners, which again, I'm like crazy grateful for being on here. But it's like you guys say like one thing in regards to health, and I'm like telling my mouth to shut up, like, because I have like, it's almost like I want to get a megaphone and like talk to people about this, because it's, bro, your health is everything to you, man. Everything, like every breath you take, every like negotiation you make, every thought of creativity on how to do your next deal, etc., is connected to your health. That like that oomph that you feel on a day-to-day, that's connected to how your neurotransmitters and your hormones and it's like, if you're not taking inventory on that nowadays and you want to win, my friend, you started off losing, and you're so out of it that you don't know that health is like the first thing you have to optimize to be the number one in your field, period. And I guess that's what gets me going. And then I'm so honored to get to speak to some of the best of the best of the best of the best that I never in my wildest imagination I would have the opportunity to actually help tweak these guys. And when I see how they think, it's like, whoa, I wish I could have a camera and just be like, look at this guy, how he thinks, and that's why he's the best in the world at what he does. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know, dude. I don't know how to do this in another way. It's like I'll die for this. I'm obsessed with this stuff.
Yeah, don't change a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't change a thing.
What got you out of your, I'll call it just like a slump, right? When you got
His depression.
in that depression, like what got you out of it? Did you use the same practices that you give to someone else when they come to you and say, listen, I'm depressed, like what do I do? Like what was the steps to kind of get you out?
So I, number one, I went to, I was the most ignorant. It's funny. I had an MD behind my name. I was a researcher and blah, blah, blah. But I didn't know anything about this. And that's one thing, listeners need to maybe categorize is when you go to your regular doctor, if he has not done any kind of studies outside of medical school and residency in regards to this, everything we're talking about will sound like Chinese to him and he will automatically shut it down. He or she. Right? So obviously I knew I didn't want to go talk to one of those guys because he knew as much as I did. And God forbid you go talk to a specialist because they're so specialized. Sometimes they're specialized in nothing. They're specialized and specialized, and it's like they don't see the body connected. That's why we do dental as well. Like I think it's insane. Like your teeth are they're so connected to the rest of your body. But anyway, so I went to go talk to a doc in Brazil. My mom's Brazilian. And in Brazil, they're big on like holistic stuff and so forth. So I Googled like who was the best guy there, whatever. And I ended up with, funny enough, the guy that does like a bunch of celebrities over there. Like impossible to get an appointment with the guy, but whatever. I got an appointment and then he looks at my blood. And I remember, bro, I was so anxious to see what he was going to tell me. And huge part of me was thinking this guy's going to be like, you have depression and so forth. But, like 20% of me was thinking maybe he's going to give me another solution, and he did. And that, just even remembering that, makes me so enthusiastic to help people because I've been, I've sat in that chair before. And, this guy goes, you don't have depression. I'm like, I don't. He's like, no. And I was like, so what do I have? He's like, you have adrenal fatigue. I'm like, adrenal what? And he's like, you're burned out. He's like, you're burned out, and then that ties in with my story, right? Really, whatever, grew up with considerable amount of financial difficulty, sold encyclopedias door to door, wouldn't sleep, and and then did clean floors, did construction, all that, whatever. It was my road, and I'm super proud of it, but it burned me to a crisp, in the whole, no sleep philosophy. I was a big, no sleep, whatever. And, it just hit a point where I was just pooped. And then this guy's like, oh yeah, you have nutrient deficiency, your hormones are all upside down. And it was just provoking a bunch of other stuff. The guy literally put me on bioidentical cortisol supplementation, which we do that here at the clinic. I don't know any other practitioner in the United States that does that. But I had to literally take bioidentical cortisol. Not even supplement for the adrenal. I literally had to take the bioidentical cortisol. Bro, in about 2 to 3 months, I was online, 80%. And then at 6 months, I was feeling like myself again. I was like, no way. I'm like, so, and that's when I started studying this stuff voraciously. I was obsessed with it. And, here in the United States, we have more resources than they do in Brazil with laboratories and so forth. So, then we took it to a completely different level here at Biohacking, very, very detailed. Yeah, so that's a little bit of how I got out of it. It was thanks to another guy.
Yeah. Similar to mine. I had a major panic attack when I was 29. No. Yes.
2 years ago, right?
Yeah, 29. And, I got obsessed with because I always had minor anxiety, but then this took it to another level. I was all fucked up. And I started reading books and started reading about methylation cycle and started reading about cortisol and hormonal issues and holy shit. It's not just take this anti-anxiety and it'll go away. It's wait a minute, there's a reason and a rationale that your body is responding this way. Maybe I need some methyl B to help, vitamin D. There's just so much shit. And there's so much shit that people don't know. Mm-hmm. That's the crazy thing.
So let me ask you, if somebody came to you that has anxiety, right? And how would you assess that person? Let's say Tino, right? He deals with anxiety. He had this major panic attack a couple years ago, and he's battled back. And right now, he's, I would say, like 5 times, 10 times better than he was a couple years ago. And that, he's been doing his research. He's been really working at it. But like, are you looking for like something, blood markers, something in the chemistry, or is it more about like therapeutics look at it?
Yeah. So this is the fun part, right? Anything I'll say here is not medical advice. Go ahead and talk to your physician about this. Also, another disclaimer I do with anywhere I speak. I'm an MD. I went to traditional med school. I did postgraduate year, but I dropped out of traditional medicine, as you guys just heard the story. So I did not finish my licensing process. So I'm not licensed, and I just run everything and design the protocols here at Biohacks. Our clinicians do everything else. So according to our protocols here, what we would do, number one, what I like to ask is, hey, what is anxiety? Like, again, let's go back to the root cause, right? If we go and take DSM-5 is the Bible of psychiatry, all right? It's the psychiatrist handbook. It stands for the Diagnostic Statistic Manual version number 5 of psychiatry. And then they have the description of anxiety, depression, right? They tell you how to treat it and so on and so forth. But what's interesting, the pathomechanism, as we say in medicine, or the pathophysiology, right, which is what is, for example, a torn ACL. That's pretty interesting. You do an MRI, it'll tell you how the percent tear, and you know the ACL is torn. What's congestive heart failure? Well, it's ejection fraction, right? Your heart can't eject more than 55%, and then you start to, and so on and so forth. There's definitions, right? There, you understand the mechanism. It's like, how is that door broken? Well, it fell off the hinge. What is anxiety? I'd love for somebody to come in, the chemical principle. And it's like, well, anxiety is diagnosed clinically. These guys, these psychiatrists, they actually vote what is anxiety, right? They actually vote, like, for example, depression, right? Depression, there's a very classic mnemonic, right? Which is sleep. Any more of the 5 symptoms that I'll say in the first, for if you have any of the 5 symptoms for more than 2 weeks, then you have depression. Number 1, the first symptom obviously is a very strong one. So, that one, of course, the person would be depressed, and is kind of the only one that I agree with, but is suicidal ideation. So somebody, obviously that's you need to go seek help immediately. But then 2 is sleep disturbance, loss of interest in anything, basically your daily activities, guilt, feeling guilty, lack of concentration, appetite problems, psychomotor retardation, right, which is just laziness and just not being able to kind of get up off the couch. If you have 5 of those for over 2 weeks, then that's depression. So depression, anxiety, what I'm trying to get at, what is the chemical principle for them? Because what we do is give SSRIs, SNRIs, serotonin type medication, dopamine type medication, and so on and so forth, norepinephrine type medication. And here's the thing. There's recent studies showing that serotonin's not connected to, or is not majorly connected to anxiety and depression as we thought. So to answer you, that is a lot more complex. And that's why when you come to Biohacks, when you come here, we really break it down. So anxiety can be coming from hormones. Anxiety can be coming from neurotransmitter imbalances. So we actually measure how much serotonin, GABA, etc. And GABA, by the way, I just posted about it yesterday. GABA is intimately connected with anxiety, depression. It doesn't get any spotlight like serotonin, but we all love GABA because when you take your Xanax and your Valium, when you drink alcohol, THC, you're all turning on GABA, but you're turning on super strong, and it can cause addiction and so forth. So to answer you, when somebody comes in with this symptomology, we need the data. We need hardcore data to see where it's coming from. And sometimes it's something simple, sometimes it's multifaceted, but multiple processes need to be adjusted. Sorry, that was a long answer, but it's hard to just say, oh, here, take some guys in my space will be like, take a peptide. I'm like, no, peptides are like the last thing you should give a person. You fix the core problem first.
I mean, it's a good answer because it is not like a one fix all, There's so many people say, take SAMe, take magnesium. I mean, there's a couple things that, like, in theory will make sense, but you're right. Like, in order to fix anything, you have to see the root cause of it. Yeah. Because if not, you could be fixing something down the line, but there's, you keep pulling back the layers and there's more down there. So I mean, that's probably the best you could probably answer.
Yeah, and that rolls into also something that I'm sure a lot of your clients come to you for, and probably a lot of our listeners, are always looking to lose weight, right? Like weight loss is probably, I don't know what percentage of your clientele is coming in to you like to try to lose weight, or is it more about like like they're already A players trying to optimize, or is it both?
No, I mean, you'd be surprised. I mean, I can't give you an exact percentage. I mean, last year we did almost 1,000 people. I mean, we get all kinds of stuff. Fertility, we get, patients battling with cancer. We get a lot of autoimmune. But yeah, we do get a lot of weight loss stuff. And, I mean, it is something that's intimately connected with a bunch of other issues. People come in with hypertension, and it's like, oh, I can't get my blood pressure down. I'm like, yeah, buddy, you're overweight. So let's get. So yeah, there's. I'd say if I had to probably, they come in for multiple reasons, but let's say on our intake forms, weight loss is checked off probably 30 to 40% of the times.
Yeah, it's a big thing. A lot of people struggle with it, and it's like for example, we're brothers, the three of us. We grew up at the same house. We ate the same. We sat at the same dinner table. So either I was taking 80% of the food on the dinner table, or there's some kind of
some different in your gene code.
Yeah, like the other night I was making a joke. I was smelling a brownie, right? And but I didn't eat it. I was just smelling it to test myself. I smelled the brownie. The next day I gained a pound somehow by huffing the brownie. So with that said, is it would you test someone who gains weight easily and it's hard for them to lose weight? Are you doing blood work and seeing, maybe it's a hormone imbalance, or maybe it's just something in their genetics that you have to just supplement to help the body burn fat easier?
Yeah. So, look, let's get really into how would you really look into somebody's physique, right? And I like using the word physique. That means I'm going to go into athlete mode, hardcore designing the person. I like to say designing physique, all these things, because it gets into more of the artistic side of things. So number one, what's your resting metabolic rate, right? So I like to do something called an RMR on people. So there I can see exactly how many calories you need to intake to stay alive on a sedentary day, on a very active day, etc. So I can see that exactly, right? So I guarantee you, brother, if you don't go over your calories, you're not going to gain weight. Okay, if you stay under your calories.
Period. Right?
Calorie deficit.
Period. The whole weight loss thing is predicated upon that. You can see all the diets and so forth, but you just gotta stay under, in caloric deficit. Either eat less, burn them, do whatever, but you just gotta stay, caloric deficit. Period. That's the name of the game. So, you can have your DNA makeup will dictate the tendency that your body has to put on weight, if you're ectomorph, mesomorph, and so on and so forth. But number one is okay, what's this person's resting metabolic rate? And you can actually change that. So depending on the person's hormonal profile and so on and so forth, you can help accelerate that or slow it down, right? So when looking at our clients and we're trying to adjust them for lifelong, even if the person comes to us for 3 months and then we let them go, which is not too common, our clients tend to stay with us, but we want to adjust them so that, obviously don't leave here and go eat cheeseburgers and pizza, because then, it's not going to work. But, we try to adjust them so that weight doesn't come back as easily as it did before, right? Because what is the process of dyslipidemia and diabetes and so forth? It's metabolic dysregulation. It's a ton of inflammation that's coming over time, and you're getting metabolically dysregulated, which leads to you ultimately having a physiology and in the way you look in a way that you're not going to be proud of. So yeah, it behooves not only looking into the DNA, but looking into the like I said, resting metabolic rate, the blood, etc., and then adjusting the person properly.
Yeah, nice. So do you believe in carnivore, keto, paleo, or calorie deficit? Like, is there anything that you like recommend to your clients, one more than the other, or is it just about eating whole foods and staying in a calorie deficit?
It depends. It depends on what the client's trying to do. So there's the overarching advice that we give here. I mean, remember, here we're looking at gut tests, we're looking at food sensitivities, we're looking at all this stuff. So we're doing medical management of the person's foods. We're doing, resting metabolic rates for a lot of the clients. And when we look at all these different kinds of tests, different kinds of food strategies, the overarching advice we give is no processed foods, right? And then if the person is trying to accomplish, most people are coming here trying to get that body that they really like and so on and so forth. I love fasting, but it's not something that I see our crew recommending a lot. Just because we make your body here very, very metabolically efficient. So they need their carbs, they need their proteins, and so on and so forth. And many times people seeking these diets like carnivore, keto, and so forth, they're also doing this to get, like the peptides out of the foods and the vitamins, but we're supplementing all that. So usually, I like to tell people, like if you're trying to get to a certain fitness level, do your meals, have your meals organized and strategized, your calories and so on and so forth, and the least amount of processed foods possible.
Yeah, processed food's a big thing. And I know you mentioned earlier about like the nation being like castrated essentially. That brings me to a question that I have is, why do you think that the nation's men's test levels are as low as they are? Because every one of my friends I talk to, oh, I got low test, I got low test, I got low test, I got low test. It's like, why? Is the food really that, like affect your testosterone levels?
Yeah. Oh, okay, wait. Forget your testosterone levels. Look. Hold on. Let me remember the statistic here. So, 1 in 10 cancers, 1 in 10 cancers is actually genetic or in origin. The other ones are environmentally induced. 9 are environmentally induced. Of those 9, 70% come from food.
Wow.
Whoa.
Okay.
Holy shit.
That's a stat. That's a stat.
Yeah. So think about that for a second. So yeah, of course it's affecting your test levels. Like, dude, I got a little boy at home. I got a little 17-month-old at home. I worry about his test levels, like his food comes from the farm, he got grandma, mom, them making like food from scratch, his bread, everything, nowadays you really got to protect your hormonal levels. They're neutering you. Period.
Yeah. I look at like you brought up your son, right? So I have 3 kids and we talk about this all the time. Like if you go into my pantry at home, it's all bad stuff, cookies, chips, like that's what the kids go. I mean, we made the mistake from a young age, like having that stuff in the house. Now they're like addicted to it. Like they really are. Like you can see it. You can see it when they go into a store or something. They gravitate right towards that packaging. Like
the sugary shit.
The sugary stuff. So like now, like my kids are 8, 6, and 3. So they're not like too old. Like they're young enough that I think we can try to change their habits now at an early age. But it's like, what I really want to do is rid all that stuff from the pantry, get all like fruits, vegetables, some healthy alternative snacks, and get them starting to wire them to eat, whole non-processed foods. But it's not easy, right? Like, do you ever hear of some of your clients that have kids? Like how would I know with you have a young son, right? And he's 17 months, so you have like this like fresh egg that you can like get him on the right path because you know that stuff early. I wish I had this mentality when my son was first born, to never introduce him. Like I make it, it's a rule in my house because I had a problem with fast food like my whole life. I guess when I was little, the only thing I would eat was McDonald's. So mom would always take me there. I'd cry and scream unless she took me there, right? So my kids are not allowed. They've never been to a McDonald's, so I don't allow them to go my wife doesn't bring them to fast food. That's like the one good thing I did with that. But like what can I do, or what can people do out there to help, help their families, their kids avoid this stuff long term?
Yeah, it's funny. So I had a question lined up here, is because I saw your content. Like, what maybe like 4 or 5 tips you could give that's pretty easy to consume, things that you're doing differently that you're raising your kid different than the traditional raising. Could you give some tips
Absolutely.
there?
Yeah. So, lining up with what he was saying, like I really like what he was saying. Like you can see that, the kids are addicted to the garbage that's, around the potato chips and so forth. Why? There's now another group of chemicals called excitotoxins. That's literally their name, excitotoxins. So they consume it, and kids go, their brain goes off like a pinball machine. Not only kids but adults. And these things they're stimulatory, they're connected with anxiety, depression, and so forth, but they're also connected with cancers, autoimmune disease, etc. So high inflammatory states. So that's your answer. There's these group of chemicals, and they're disguised under various names, like, for example, natural flavors. That is one of the most nefarious terms. I talk about that term a lot. That the FDA has very poor regulation compared to other terms. So these things harm you and harm the kids, harm their thought process and so forth. So as an advice, one of the first things I would say is to eliminate that. Don't let them come close to that. If obviously they've been exposed to it, start cutting it for them, little by little. And nothing better than, hardcore educating them what that stuff is, depending on how old they are and so on and so forth. And then, the first thing is like removing all these kinds of toxins. And then the second thing you could do, and I know this will throw some parents into a loop, but go to your local farmer's market and see what kind of foods you can make from there. Because when you get there, it's like, oh shoot, it's a little harder to cook like this because you're not used to it, or it's harder to prepare meals because it's like, oh wow, yeah, what here can I just put straight in the microwave? Don't microwave your food. Microwave it as minimal as possible, right? So a lot of it is what can you remove, and then again, not even like the Whole Foods thing. Whole Foods. You guys have Whole Foods up there in Boston, right?
Oh yeah, big
Yeah,
time.
all right, make sure. Yeah, I know some supermarkets are. All right, so yeah, so it's like, no, man, that's not. You think that's any healthier than the other stuff? No, it's just better marketing. So I would say eliminate the processed foods, especially these excitotoxins for kids. Whatever there's, look, and we'll spend too much time here, but look up what excitotoxins are. We actually do blood work to identify excitotoxins in people, which is crazy. You can actually show you, like, hey, look, you got red 40, yellow 6, all this stuff inside your body. And then go for non-processed foods, go for farm fresh foods, whole foods, for them. And then the best thing you can do is like my mic drop advice on kids. And I want to do it. My wife is getting on my case a little bit because she doesn't want me to draw his blood, but she doesn't want me to prick him. But I'm like, sorry. Do a micronutrient test on him. Micronutrients, or on him or her, from vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. Like, see, like, what are their levels of CoQ10, selenium, vitamin E, all that stuff that's so important for their development, right? Don't we talk about vitamins and prenatal vitamins and all that stuff? So yes, they need that. So custom supplementation for the kids is like a must. And I'm going to be adventurous enough to say, this is an opinion, by the way. I don't want to show up on some hater IG channel. Look what he said. This is an opinion. This is not. I can't back this up. But in a personal opinion, I'm pretty sure this will affect if you do as what I'm suggesting here, remove excitotoxin, give them whole food diets, do a custom supplementation program for the child, you will reap benefits in that child's scholastic achievement and even in his professional career. And there's studies showing how gluten affects SAT results, etc. So yeah, don't give your kids gluten and dairy. Jesus, don't, that stuff. Yeah, for sure.
That's great advice.
That's a hot topic. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. And now, so what about like, okay, so for like the entrepreneurs that are listening, for like the high performers, right? And who's not in Miami, they don't really have access to, to a biohacks type place. Like what can they do on a daily basis to kind of, have that superhuman like protocol? Like, is there some supplements they can do? Like, what do you recommend that somebody can do, like on a daily basis, like a person who's trying to, become their best self?
Well, number one, we're nationwide, so if anybody wants
Oh, there you
to,
go.
yeah. If anybody will you just call us in 24 to 48 hours, wherever you are, somebody will go draw your blood. So and then we'll meet you on Zoom, and then everything you need will be custom made and drop shipped to your front door. And then we meet you our nurse practitioners every 2 weeks are meeting with you. You're in a group text, our team's watching you, our family med doc, that's that. Um, but for somebody that's looking to optimize and they're just fresh in the game and so forth, um, there's a basic group of supplements that a lot of people need, like vitamin D, magnesium. Those are big. Fish oil, because like we talked about, the word testosterone here has been said a few times. So for example, if you're looking to optimize your testosterone, where does testosterone come from? Testosterone comes from cholesterol. Cholesterol is great for you. The whole there's I have a book here. This book's great. Cholesterol's not the culprit. So we kill the whole thing. Oh, cholesterol. I could go on and on cholesterol. So give yourself good fats, right? So a good amount of fish oil is very important for you to produce hormones. Your brain runs on cholesterol. Your heart loves cholesterol. So I would say fish oil, magnesium, vitamin D. And then some supplementation, like a little bit more higher level. It's proven beneficial for heart conditions, cancer conditions. Would be NAD. NAD is a little bit more of a fancy molecule. I'm a big fan of NAD and optimizing your mitochondria. And then if you can find a place that has like red light therapy or even hyperbaric medicine, that's insane. Like go take your phone calls inside a hyperbaric, or get your laptop. Again, you can't go into too high pressures inside a hyperbaric, but hyperbaric's awesome. Hyperbaric is like really, really cool. Yeah, those are some
red light therapy. I see a lot of stuff on red light therapy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like even in saunas and just different places to do it. Like they sell those mats.
Oh,
and you can get like affordable ones, and then you can obviously get like the shit show ones that are wicked expensive.
How about cold plunging? So I know you have like the coldest cold plunge on earth, right? Is that what it is?
I have an actual question about the cold plunge.
Hold on, let me. He's got a special machine. Like your cold plunge is the coldest possible, right?
Yeah, if we don't shut it off every once in a while, it turns off. It turns into a piece of ice, and so you can't even. It's just a big piece of ice. Yeah, it's cold, chilly.
So what temperature are you cold plunging at?
32. 32?
32?
God.
That's freezing, yeah. That's freezing. Yeah.
I did 30.
That is freezing.
32 to 34. Like we keep it cycling there. It's actually right now driving me nuts because I got to reset the thing. It went up I haven't used it because it's like at 39. I'm like, this is for wusses.
It's like a warm bath for you at 39.
Yeah, we actually have a post. I got challenged by very special individual, a good friend. I don't know if you guys know who Andrei Arlovsky is, 3 times UFC ultra heavyweight champion.
Oh yeah,
Russian. He's the guy in the UFC. He's still fighting. He's been fighting the longest, I think 24 years in the UFC. So tough guy. And he's like, let's see who could go the longest. This guy's Russian, hardcore. And I'm like, okay. So he put that thing, it was like the ice was just there and so forth, and he went 5 minutes at 32. I was like, no way. And then I was next. I was like, I gotta beat him. Yo, I almost died. And mind you, this was like the 4th time in my life that I had ever done cold plunging. So I stayed to 5.5. The video's up on our IG. But I couldn't stop shivering afterwards, which was like, I pushed it a little too much. Like I was like, when I got out, I was like, it was a little too cold.
The coldest I did was around 39, But then there's studies that are saying, is there a difference? Like if you do 5 minutes at 42 or 39 and you do, a minute at 32, is there a difference like in your body, like reaction? Like, or do you get the same kind of mental benefits?
No, yeah, a lot of the study. Yeah, I've looked into a lot of those studies. Honestly, I don't even get too much into some of those studies. I mean, because I think it's very inconclusive. That's why even me personally, like I go through a lot of research. I think it's very inconclusive. The stuff I find out there. I personally, this is me being very non-scientific, non-medical. This is me just being the grunt, just like wanting to go hardcore. The 32 is like, it's hardcore. I like it. It's like, and then mentally too, it's just like, honestly, I'm the health benefits that we talk about is hormesis, right? Where it's like you're shocking your cells. But there's no science why, like no specific science why I leave it so cold. It's just really like to be hardcore. That's it. Navy SEAL kind of deal.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Doc, I know you're a very busy guy. So we want to be cognizant of your time and get wrapped here soon. So we have two more questions. Number one, how important is eating organic food versus non-organic? Is that into your, like, the reason you're saying go to farmers markets and eating farm fresh, is that because you're looking for organic specifically whenever possible?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then what is organic, right? Again, always go to the what do they define as organic? There's lots of times, like, I'm waiting for the day I'm going to see organic soda. Like they're putting organic on the label. If it's in a wrapper or in a plastic bag or in a box and it says organic, no, it doesn't. No. Many times, again, these laws change and it's hard to keep up with all this stuff, but sometimes only 25% of that material needs to be sourced in some organic shape or way for it to be called organic. So when I even talk about organic, yes, I'm talking about farm, like you buy it at the farm, and as even then, sometimes not fully organic, but yeah, as much as you can, that's like, I toot that horn very much. That's super, super important. Your body was designed to consume nutrients, not chemicals.
Yeah. All right. So our last question that we ask all our guests, and you can answer this, business wise or personally, like if you can give one piece of advice to our listeners, again, whether it's about business or optimizing your health, what piece of advice that you either gotten in your life or that you can now pass on to other people that most will help you and could help our listeners moving forward?
Yeah. A mindset of abundance, and always have a mindset of abundance, and never of scarcity. And to do that, we either live in a state of love or a state of fear. And anxiety, as we spoke about, it's just fear. Depression, it's just fear. Phobias, it's just fear. And for you to live the life, to be that businessman, to be that father, to run the company that you want to run, you have to run on an emotion of love that will be conducive to a life of abundance. And for that, the vehicle that's operating the whole thing, which is your spirit, mind, and body, needs to be at top vibration and frequency. So take care of your body, take care of your thoughts, and keep focused on love and abundance, and don't look the other way.
Wow. That's a mic drop if I've ever seen one.
That's probably the best one.
Yeah, that was the best answer I think we've gotten. That's awesome.
Shit, that was good.
So Doc, thank you so much for your time. This was awesome. I feel like I was just educated like crazy. I have like 2 pages of notes over here. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And we hope to catch you next time we come to Miami.
Dr. D, I'll be in Miami New Year's Eve. I'll text you.
Absolutely. Let's go. All right. I'll see you guys.